Joined by Ben Domenech, editor-at-large of the Spectator, Fox News contributor extraordinaire. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Hugh. Always good to be with you.
You know, I went to my annual Christmas party. I pick one a year inside the Beltway because I really genuinely hate such things. But this year I went to Ambassador O'Brien's, and I met this wonderful guy named Doug Domenech. And I learned all about the Loudoun County Sheriff Department and young Ben Domenech. I'm not going to go into the details, America, because what is said between a dad and his friend at a bar, at a club, is just, it's just going to stay between us. But Ben, I know everything now.
Well, I appreciate your respect for privacy and for the let's say absconding of various things when one is a teenager is just sort of a rite of passage that one.
You gotta, if you haven't met the sheriff in Loudoun County and you grew up there, I just don't think actually you've had a life. You know what I really like, Ben? Your dad pretty much had my dream job. He got to be an American Department of Interior guy charged with Palau. And so we swapped Palau stories, because I actually had a project in Palau when I was a lawyer back in the day. So my dream job is to be chief of staff at the Department of the Interior so I can fire everybody at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and other associated agencies. But
I think that is a dream job, and absolutely agree with you, sir.
Because I can't get confirmed anything. But he told me, he reminded me, you went to William & Mary. Now, my alma mater, Harvard, is in full meltdown after Elise Stefanik gutted it, MIT, and Penn. And I think Penn is going to fire their college president today. Is William & Mary okay, or they have the disease as well?
Unfortunately, they do have the disease as well. It may not be quite as virulent as it is in the Ivies, but it is still definitely there. And unfortunately, it's something that has been there have been, I think, very little attempt to push back in a way. In Virginia, it's become a far more lefty place since I was there, and it was already trending in the wrong direction. But look, I think that this mind virus that we've seen, take over all these people. This is really I think, a moment of clarity for a lot of people who went through their educational experiences at these institutions, or had family members who did so, or certainly respected them so much from afar that they thought of them as places that they would aspire to send their own children to. And now I think that we're seeing, when these folks get in front of Congress and are asked very basic questions, ones that they should be able to answer easily, instead they retreat into this completely bonkers language that makes no sense to anyone with an actual brain, but is what they've been taught to say by all the people who, are, frankly, surrounding them on the campuses every day, who are giving them advice, the lawyers in their ears. And we saw that run smack dab, I think, into a number of Americans who culturally, even if they don't have any hope of getting into these institutions, still respect them and view them as places that you aspire to go to. I frankly think it's a good thing, a healthy thing to have this exposed, but it still doesn't make you any happier to see it happen to institutions that you think of as being central to the American higher educational experience.
It is a moment of potential restoration, like Charles II returning after Cromwell.
Yeah.
And because they are the Roundheads. The people who are running these places are sort of the Roundheads of the left. And they are just dictators. And now Penn's going to dump their president today. I think President Gay, maybe the ice will crack under her. Rabbi Volpe, who is on their, quote, advisory committee on anti-Semitism, resigned yesterday and said, look, eradicating anti-Semitism from our community is a big deal. But he said the advisory committee was too ill-equipped to combat an anti-Semitic and evil ideology that, quote, grips far too many of the students and faculty at Harvard. Battling that combination of ideologies is the work of more than a committee or a single university. This is the task of educating a generation and also a vast unlearning. All right, I kind of agree with that, but you can't vastly unlearn, and you can't do work unless you do it in institutions one at a time. I want Harvard to fire everybody, and I want them to put Mike Pompeo in charge of the investigatory committee and make Hillary the acting president. So they know how to run bureaucracies, Ben. How else do you get a hold of the monsters?
Well, look, one of the things that we should do, I think, mentally, just in terms as we observe this happening, is connect this directly with what we saw this week from, White House interns signing on to something, decrying the president's stance on these issues, and what we saw before when it came to the reports from the State Department in terms of their lower level people. These are all people who go through these institutions and are automatically allowed into the door in all of these different important positions, and people have never been really asking, even as those institutions have been changing, what that new population can bring in the negative. And I think that that's something that is being revealed right now. And those of us close to it have been seeing this happen for quite some time. But I just don't think we ever thought that they would be as blatant in admitting their acceptance of this evil ideology and even defending it in the way that they have. It's absolutely abhorrent, and whatever it takes to root it out, it has to happen. Otherwise, these institutions are going to completely die. And look, I think that there have been institutions that have died in American history, but we've also been a place that people have come to for a very long time because of the quality of our higher education, because that was something that set us apart from the rest of the world, and losing that is losing something of significance in the American experience.
Now, Ben Domenech, not only have the interns lost their mind at the White House, and they all should be fired, by the way. I would just fire them all because they're interns.
Immediately.
Yeah, just say, look, guys, we've made a mistake here. We thought you had a brain, and you're out of here. Because if you don't understand 10-7, you're out of here. But number two, I want to talk to you about media, legacy elite media, and their panic at the approach of the dread pirate Donald. It is everywhere. Most recently this morning in the New York Times, another piece begging. They do two things. They beg Joe Biden to quit, or they warn of the tyrant Donald. What happened to our media?
It's so funny how this has panned out. I think that there was this assumption over the past year that all of the different legal woes around Donald Trump would be weighing him down at the end of the year to such a degree that the media could be confident of two things: that the Republican Party would nominate Donald Trump and that he would very obviously lose. But they can read the same numbers that we can, and they can see the same polls that we can that show, particularly among young people, particularly among people who have the least amount of money within this supposedly great Bidenomics economy, those are the people who are the most out of sorts about what comes next, the most distrustful of the leadership that Joe Biden represents. Charlemagne the God is out there saying that Joe Biden needs to give America a Christmas present of stepping aside and not running again. And I think that one of the things that is a kind of a test case for the Democratic coalition is when the young people are out of sorts about this kind of thing, you can only press that button on the abortion issue so often. You can only get so much from that. And I think that for the left in this moment, they're realizing, oh, no, we don't really have a way to win these people back to vote for an 81-year-old and who they simply don't have any confidence in and who's a joke. And I think that that's something that is, really surprising to the media, and that's why they're all choosing this moment to freak out, because it's the last possible moment, really, when Joe Biden could conceivably step aside.
And his understudy, Kamala Harris, is also a joke. Now, I sat down before said party at which I heard about said Ben Domenech from said Doug Domenech. I sat down with Dan Runde, and I said to him, and Dan's a good guy. I've known Dan for a long time. He wrote the book, The American Imperative. And I said, Dan, it occurs to me, people hate us. He said, what? I said, people hate Washington, D.C. and Manhattan. They hate the idea that parties like this are happening where people they don't know who run their lives are gathering to clink glasses. And there is an earthquake, a political earthquake coming. And it might be in the form of Donald Trump. It might be in the toppling of the academic towers of the Ivy. But people hate elites, Ben. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. I think they absolutely do, and I think they hate them more because they feel like they've skated through all of the different economic woes that people have experienced over the past several years, and that they look down on them and say, basically, that you shouldn't be worried about any of this. It doesn't really matter that the stakes are smaller and that the things that you can buy your family are costing more, that more and more of your income is getting eaten up in such a way that your Christmas is going to be smaller this year.
And your schools were closed and your kids don't know as much as they should.
And we pretend like we had no responsibility when it came to that. I think that you see the height of that in the attitude that Gavin Newsom has about all of this stuff, where he can say, well, hindsight, we would have done things differently. But, that hindsight was available to you almost immediately. Within the space of months, we knew that the things that you were doing were mistakes. And yet there are people now who have to live with the consequences of that, and children who are going to have to live with the consequences of it for the rest of their educational careers in ways that are going to hurt them and hurt America.